Pokémon Diamond version and Pearl version are role-playing games developed by Game Freak and published by Nintendo for the Nintendo DS. With the enhanced remake Pokémon Platinum, the games comprise the fifth installment and fourth generation of the Pokémon series of RPGs. First released in Japan on September 28, 2006, the games were later released to North America, Australia, and Europe over the course of 2007. Like previous Pokémon games, Diamond and Pearl chronicle the adventures of a young Pokémon trainer as she trains and battles Pokémon while also thwarting the schemes of a criminal organization. The games add many new features, such as internet play over the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection and changes to battle mechanics and Pokémon contests, along with addition of 107 new Pokémon. The games are independent of each other, but feature largely the same plot, and while both can be played separately, it is necessary to trade between them in order to complete the game's Pokédexes. Development of Diamond and Pearl was announced at a Nintendo press conference in the fourth calendar quarter of 2004. The games were designed with features of the DS. It was forecasted to be released in Japan in 2005, but was shipped in 2006. In promotion of the games, Nintendo sold a limited edition Nintendo DS Lite in Japan, and held a release party celebrating their North American release. The games received generally favorable reviews. Most critics praised the addition of Wi-Fi features and felt that the gameplay, though it had not received much updating from previous games, was still engaging. Reviewers were divided on the graphics, however, and the audio was criticized as being primitive. The games enjoyed more commercial success than their Game Boy Advance predecessors, with around 18 million units sold worldwide. Diamond and Pearl have sold over 2 million more units than Ruby and Sapphire, and almost 6 million more units than Fire Red and Leaf Green, while outselling their successors, Black and White, by over 2 million copies. Gameplay. Pokémon Diamond and Pearl are role-playing games with adventure elements. The basic mechanics of the games are largely the same as their predecessors. As with all Pokémon games for handheld consoles, gameplay is in third-person overhead perspective, and consists of three basic screens: a field map, in which the player navigates the main character, a battle screen, and the menu, in which the player configures his or her party, items, or gameplay settings. The player begins the game with one Pokémon, and can capture more using Pokéballs. The player can also use his/her Pokémon to do damage to the other Pokémon. Whenever the player encounters a wild Pokémon or is challenged by a trainer to a battle, the screen switches to a turn-based battle screen where the Pokémon fight. During battle, the player may fight, use an item, switch the active Pokémon, or flee. All Pokémon have hit points. Whenever a Pokémon's HP is reduced to 0, it faints and cannot battle unless revived at a Pokémon Center or with an item. If the player's Pokémon defeats the opposing Pokémon, it receives experience points. After accumulating enough experience points, it can level up. Most Pokémon evolve into a new species of Pokémon whenever they reach a certain level. Pokémon's stats also increase every time it levels up, and they will also learn new moves as well. If the player cancels an evolution, the Pokémon will learn new moves faster. Apart from battling, capturing Pokémon is the most important element of Pokémon gameplay. Although other trainers' Pokémon cannot be captured, the player can use different kinds of Pokéballs on a wild Pokémon during battle. A successful capture adds the Pokémon to the player's active party or stores it if the player already has the maximum of 6 Pokémon. Factors in the success rate of capture include the HP of the target Pokémon and the strength of the Pokéball used. The lower the target's HP and the stronger the Pokéball, the higher the success rate of capture is. Also, inflicting certain status effects such as sleep or paralysis add a multiplier to the capture rate, making it easier to capture wild Pokémon. Each species has a capture rate of its own as well. New features. As with other generations of Pokémon games, Diamond and Pearl retained the basic gameplay of their predecessors while introducing additional new features. Increased from 3 times of day in Gold and Silver, there are 5 time periods in Diamond and Pearl: morning, day, afternoon, evening, and night. Diamond and Pearl introduced several changes to battle mechanics. In previous generations, Pokémon moves were classified as physical or special based on their type. For example, all fire-type moves were special and all ground-type moves were physical. In Diamond and Pearl, however, moves are categorized into 3 groups. Attacks that make physical contact with the opponent are physical, attacks that do not make physical contact are special, and moves that do not deal damage directly are classified as status. Some of the game's new features capitalize on the Nintendo DS's features. The Poketto, a simulated smartwatch, uses the DS's bottom screen and hosts applications including a clock, a calculator, a map, a counter, and a drawing pad. These applications are obtained throughout the game. Beneath Sinnoh's surface is the underground, a large area used for wireless multiplayer gaming. In it, players can create and decorate secret bases and participate in mini-games. Diamond and Pearl also employ support for the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection, allowing players to communicate through voice chat, trade, and battle online. The main system for trade is the Global Trade Station, which allows players to trade with people around the world. Players can search for any Pokémon that they have seen in the game and can offer their own. If another player is offering the requested Pokémon and is looking for the offered Pokémon, the trade occurs immediately. Certain species of Pokémon traded internationally will have a Pokédex entry in the language of the game it originated from. Diamond and Pearl's Pokémon contests consist of 3 stages, 2 more than the contests of the Game Boy Advance games. In the visual competition stage, players use the Nintendo DS's touchscreen to place accessories on the Pokémon to boost a particular trait, such as cool or cute, and earn points. In the dance competition stage, the player must tap buttons on the touchscreen in rhythm with the music. The final stage, acting competition, is similar to Pokémon contests of the Game Boy Advance games. Pokémon use their moves to appeal to the judges and crowd, like Pokéblocks in the 3rd generation games. Baked goods called puffins can be made from berries and fed to Pokémon in order to boost a particular trait, and therefore, the likelihood of success in a relevant contest. Connectivity to other devices in addition to compatibility with each other. Diamond and Pearl offer compatibility with the Game Boy Advance Pokémon RPGs, Pokémon Ranger, and Pokémon Battle Revolution. After earning the National Pokédex in Diamond and Pearl, the player can migrate Pokémon from the Game Boy Advance games to Diamond and Pearl by inserting a Game Boy Advance cartridge into the Game Boy Advance cartridge slot of the Nintendo DS while Diamond or Pearl is in the DS slot. After 6 Pokémon are uploaded from the cartridge, they are sent to the PAL Park, an area where the player can capture the transferred Pokémon. Pokémon uploads are restricted to 6 every 24 hours per Game Boy Advance cartridge, and the player must capture the uploaded Pokémon before performing another transfer. Pokémon transferred to Diamond and Pearl this way cannot be sent back to a Game Boy Advance cartridge. After completing a special mission in Pokémon Ranger, the player will be able to send a Manaphy egg or Riolu from Ranger to Diamond or Pearl. Finally, players can wirelessly upload Pokémon from Diamond and Pearl to the Wii games Pokémon Battle Revolution and My Pokémon Ranch. DS players can also connect to the internet and battle with other players around the world. They can use DS Wireless to play with people within approximately 5 meters. They can also play underground. Synopsis. Setting Diamond and Pearl are set in the fictional region of Sinnoh, an island based on the Japanese island of Hokkaido. Sinnoh is probably not directly connected to any other region in the Pokémon universe, much like Hoenn. It is characterized by large, snow-covered mountains. In this game, the starters are the Grass-type Turtwig, the Fire-type Chimchar, and the Water-type Piplup. Turtwig can evolve into Grottle and then into Torterra. Chimchar can evolve into Monferno and then into Infernape. And Piplup can evolve into Prinplup and then into Empoleon. Unlike other regions, Sinnoh has a northern feel to it because it is the only region with snow-covered routes. Sinnoh is also characterized by its waterways. It has 3 main lakes that form a triangle. Unlike the Hoenn region, however, which is mostly water routes, only 30% of Sinnoh's landscape comprises waterways. Underneath Sinnoh's surface is the Sinnoh Underground, which is a large maze of caves and tunnels. Story: the games chronicle the adventures of a new Pokémon trainer who strives to become the Pokémon League champion by collecting and training Pokémon. Like most games in the series, Diamond and Pearl feature 8 Pokémon gyms led by gym leaders, professional trainers whose expertise lies in a particular Pokémon type. Gym leaders serve as bosses and reward skilled trainers with gym badges, key to the advancement of the plot. As in Ruby and Sapphire, the protagonist must also thwart the schemes of a crime syndicate, who plans to use Pokémon to restructure the region into a utopia. Like all other Pokémon RPGs, Diamond and Pearl begin in the protagonist's hometown. After viewing a television report about a media-conducted search for a red Gyarados, which was spotted at a faraway lake, the protagonist and his or her best friend travel together to check the local lake for a Pokémon like it. They spot Professor Rowan, a Pokémon evolution researcher, and his assistant, the playable character not selected in the game, Lucas or Dawn. After a short discussion, the professor and his assistant leave the lake, leaving a briefcase behind. When they are attacked by Wild Starly, the protagonist and his or her rival examine the case. The player is then given a choice among the 3 Pokémon found in the briefcase with which to battle the Starly. After defeating the Starly, Lucas or Dawn retrieves and returns the briefcase to the professor. Noticing that a bond has been forged between the young protagonist and his or her chosen Pokémon, Rowan offers it to him or her, asking that he or she embark on a journey and fill his or her Pokédex. The protagonist encounters the main antagonist, Team Galactic, early in the game, when he or she must save Professor Rowan from its thugs. However, its motives are unclear until later. The protagonist encounters the team twice before it takes over Sinnoh's 3 lakes in an attempt to capture the Mirage Pokémon. Shortly after the player earns his or her 7th gym badge, Team Galactic captures the Mirage Pokémon and imprisons them inside the science laboratory of the Team Galactic headquarters building, where its members extract crystals from the Pokémon to create the Red Chain, an object that can control the legendary Pokémon Palkia or Dialga. After releasing the trio, the protagonist is able to access the cave atop Mount Coronet, where the leader of Team Galactic awakens Dialga or Palkia. The legendary Pokémon's powers begin to overwhelm Sinnoh, causing the newly free Uxie, Azelf, and Mesprit to attempt to stop it. The player then battles Palkia, Dialga. After defeating or capturing the Pokémon, Sinnoh returns to normal. After this, the player will continue, eventually battling the Sinnoh region Pokémon League's Elite Four: Aaron, Bertha, Flint, and Lucian. After defeating all 4 members, the player will battle the Sinnoh League champion, a woman named Cynthia, who had appeared before in the game. If the protagonist beats Cynthia, he or she is the new Sinnoh League champion, beating the game. After the player beats the game, there is a new island to explore that is filled with other types of Pokémon. His or her old friend, who challenged him or her to battles multiple times before, will be waiting for him or her here. The old friend will challenge the player to another battle. On this island, there are also stores and a tournament center. Development and release. With Pokémon Dash's release and the release date of the Nintendo DS, the development of Pokémon Diamond and Pearl was announced at a Nintendo press conference in the fourth calendar quarter of 2004. Junichi Masuda at Game Freak developed the titles, saying it would become a new type of game that offers a number of new forms of play, and that he was determined to create the ultimate Pokémon version. Though Diamond and Pearl were expected to be released in Japan by 2005, Nintendo revealed that the developers were still working on aspects of the gameplay, and that the games would not be released until 2006. The company said that Diamond and Pearl would be able to communicate with Pokémon games for the Game Boy Advance, allowing players to transfer their Pokémon to the new games. Nintendo also announced that the games would make full use of the Wi-Fi capabilities of the DS, allowing 16 players to communicate wirelessly at one time. Further information concerning the games was not released until mid-2006, when Nintendo President Satoru Iwata mentioned that connectivity with Pokémon Battle Revolution was also still in development. New features such as the Poketto time sensitivity were also mentioned. According to Pokémon co-creator Ryan Long, the games were designed with the DS's unique features in mind, such as the Wi-Fi capabilities and slot for Game Boy Advance cartridges. The command buttons in the battle screen are large and color-coded, according to Masuda. This feature would facilitate gameplay for players unable to read. Also, the touchscreen interface was designed to encourage players to use their fingers rather than the stylus to manipulate the screen. Though most of the graphics in Diamond and Pearl are 2D, some of the background elements are 3D. The decision to retain 2D graphics in Diamond and Pearl drew criticism. In response, Tsuneyakazu Ishihara said that, "We wanted to maintain the original idea of Pokémon being a game that you played on this big map," and explained that, physically, the games were in 3 dimensions but was designed to maintain the original feel of the game. Responding to criticism over the use of friend codes in the games, Ishihara explained that it was a security measure taken to ensure that players would not be able to chat with strangers over the Wi-Fi connection. Nintendo released a statement detailing glitches found in Japanese releases of Diamond and Pearl. The glitches caused players to be stuck in an in-game wall or lose saved data. Nintendo has released patches to certain retailers in Japan to fix these glitches. The games were released in Japan on September 28, 2006. To commemorate the release, Nintendo sold a limited edition DS Lite in Japanese Pokémon Center stores and through the Pokémon Fan Club by mail. The consoles featured the game's mascots Dialga and Palkia painted in silver and gold respectively on a metallic black finish. On December 20, 2006, Nintendo of America announced that the North American release of the games was slated for April 22, 2007, and that those who pre-ordered their copies of the games would receive special DS styluses branded with some of the new Pokémon. Shortly before the game's North American release, the Pokémon Company presented a limited demo of the games for Nintendo's booth at the Game Developers Conference. To celebrate the game's North American release, Nintendo held a release party at the Nintendo World Store in New York City's Rockefeller Plaza. Nintendo of Europe announced a release date of July 27, 2007, for the European Union, and Nintendo Australia announced a June 21 release date. A launch event was held in game stores at Hamleys to celebrate the European release of the games. The event, held on July 26, 2007, offered a chance to purchase the games one day before their official release date and featured an appearance by band McFly. To celebrate the Australian release of the games, Nintendo launched the nationwide Nintendo DS Connection Tour 07. Each stop in the tour featured events such as Pokémon trading card game competitions and Pokémon trivia games. The success of the games revived the popularity of the Pokémon brand. George Harrison, then Nintendo of America's Vice President of Marketing, noted that the games were attracting players of all ages, from younger children to grown men and women, and older players who played the original Pokémon games. As a result, Pokémon USA opened a temporary boutique in the Times Square Toys R Us that sold exclusively Pokémon-licensed merchandise including Jack's Pacific-created action figures, plush toys, backpacks, and clothing. Ronald Bois, president of Toys R Us, stated that the store planned to open temporary boutiques in all 585 of its domestic locations. Other Pokémon merchandise includes a Battle Dome playset and a talking Pokédex. Additionally, Pokémon USA partnered with Burger King in 2008 to launch a promotional campaign in which Burger King included exclusive Pokémon trading cards and accessories with kids' meals. The promotion lasted from July 7 to August 3 in the United States and continued through the fall internationally. Soundtrack: Nintendo DS Pokémon Diamond and Pearl Super Music Collection is a 2-disc soundtrack featuring music scored by Hitomi Sato and Junichi Masuda under the supervision of Goichi Inos, with a few other fanfares composed by Morikazu Aoki. The album, released in Japan on December 22, 2006, peaked at number 253 on Japan's Oricon charts and charted for 1 week.